Well, everybody, welcome to Relationship Matters. Another empowering conversation to be had, and it's so good to have you. I hope you can join us live. If you're not joining us live, by all means, and you watch this later, it's okay. You can still make comments, join the conversation. We want to hear your thoughts on all the subjects that we talk about on here. And you might be wondering where my co-host is. He'll be here shortly. I believe that he's just. He just got off the airport out of the airport at about 3 o'clock, and he's heading home to jump on. He and I have both been traveling quite a bit lately, and so it's been a bit of a hit and miss. And we're really trying to be consistent with having something on every week, every Friday at 3. Now we may have to change that time because we're finding that both of us seem to be traveling a lot on Fridays and Mondays. So stay tuned. We may change up the time and date, but we're here today, and I hope you enjoyed last week. I was traveling, so we couldn't have a session, like a live session. But I did post a message I had spoken about, gratitude a while back, and I just thought that I always want to post something on this time slot so that you get something to watch and be encouraged by, because that's really the name of the game for me, anyway. And I know for Chris, our heart is just to encourage you, to encourage people, and to be an encouragement, and to talk about all kinds of different subjects. And today we were gonna continue our trust talk, but I just had last minute thought that I wanted to talk leadership. I want to talk about the crisis in leadership today and whatnot. So we're going to get into that in a few minutes, and hopefully it'll be encouraging to you. A little bit of business. I want to remind you that we have a couple of things going on my website that you can access, and we want you to subscribe wherever you're watching this. You can like, or if it's a YouTube, you can subscribe, or if you're listening or watching later on Spotify, please subscribe there as well. We're trying to increase our subscriptions so that we can get greater reach and reach out to more people. And I really want to invite you also to invite others. Sometimes I've had a couple people find it or come across it, and they said, wow, this is the best kept secret. We don't have a large subscription base yet, but we're trying to head that way, because we want to really encourage people, and we want to be able to talk about relationships. There's such a crisis on in relationships these days, more than ever. And I think some of that stems out of leadership, and or bad leadership. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. And thanks, Rose. I see your comments. It's nice to have you on. You're such a loyal, faithful follower. And Gary Chupek, yes. Boy, a couple of weeks ago, I hope you watched the interview I did with Gary and Molly, his wife. What a powerful interview. They were so transparent. And Gary, I just was so much encouraged that you would take that time for us. And Gary is a fantastic mental coach, and just an all-around great encourager himself. And boy, doors have been flying open for him. He's been all over the world, and so speaking. And so Gary, I just value our friendship so much, and just want to honor you. So thanks for doing that interview, and thank Molly for me too, because that was a very powerful time that we had together. And so anyway, my website is markgordon.ca, and you can go on there, and there's a couple of things on there that you'll want to pay attention to. One is the courses that I have. I have a few on there, and I'm going to be adding more and more as I go along. And it is behind a paywall, but that's some of the way I make my living and can get paid. We don't obviously charge for podcasts. I don't charge for a lot of things that I do, but this is one way I felt like we could maybe generate some revenue. And so just really encouraged if you could head over to the website and have a look, maybe sign up. I'm going to start doing a newsletter with a video of vlogging, if you will, very shortly. So if you go to my website, make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. Now, if you've already done that and you're not seeing anything, it's because I'm technologically challenged, and I haven't quite figured it out yet on HubSpot how to get that thing going. But I'm committed to getting it going this month, in May by the latest. And then I'm going to be having a weekly newsletter that goes out, some relationship tips, just some encouragement. I'll probably put the podcast episodes on there each time to keep everybody up to date on that in case you can't make it live here. Then it's going to go out on there. And so I'm really hoping, my hope is for that newsletter is going to be that it's a really encouraging and informative thing. And I'm going to be shifting a lot of my communication through that newsletter, through that database. And so just wanted to give you the heads up today while I had you on my own before Chris jumps in here and joins me and to do that. So let's jump right into the subject. We're not going to wait for Chris. He'll get here when he gets here. I want to just really be able to just talk to you a little bit about, sorry, I'm just techie things here, to talk about leadership. I find right now, I don't know about you, that there's a leadership crisis in the world. If we look in the political world, there's just so much disinformation and misinformation. I love how they use that language. Really, what they're trying to say is just everybody's just lying to you. I say it the way it is on this podcast. I don't mix words, so we don't need any fancy words to minimize dishonesty. There is not enough honesty in leadership today. I heard recently about a huge national corporation that gets hundreds of millions of dollars from the government in support, and they made in profit over $1 billion last year. And the CEO, the leader, got like something like a $14 million bonus, and then they laid off 6,000 people. Like in a time when economic crisis is happening, in a time when people need their jobs desperately, all of a sudden this leader chose to lay off. Now, I know that there's a whole series of things that goes on with those decision making, and it's not just one leader, but you know, it just sickened my heart. And I'm not going to say what company it was, but it just sickened my heart because I really believe that now is the time that community needs to pull together. And we're looking for leadership. We want to see leadership in every sphere of life. We want to see leadership in the faith community. You all know that I'm part of the faith community, and I find that even there's been a lack of leadership. So today I want to talk about leadership. Let's just look at it. And I have a course that I did, and it will be coming on, hoping to record it soon, and it'll be on my website to be able to be purchased. But it's called Strength-Based Leadership. And I come at it from a strength-based. I want people to see what's strong, not what's wrong. And so we want to do that. And so today I'm just going to talk a little bit about leadership, what it is, what it isn't. And I'd love you to join the conversation if you have any thoughts on that. I would love to hear it. So here's Gary already has asked a question. Does everything rise and fall on leadership? Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, we can look at the different spheres of leadership. There's self-leadership. So does everything rise and fall on self-leadership? Absolutely. There's family leadership. Does everything fall and rise on on relationships, family relationships, on to have good leaders? Yes, absolutely. And in organizations and business, all of it, we need solid leadership to be able to do that. Rose, that's a good comment. Supportive leadership up front, honest and trustworthy. Absolutely. You hit it. You nailed it. That's exactly what we need. I saw this quote. It says, great leaders don't succeed because they are great. Great leaders succeed because they make others great. And I just love that concept. I love that thought that true leadership isn't actually about me as the leader. True leadership is about me finding greatness in others and bringing it out, helping them succeed. It's not my success that is important as a leader. And I think that our world, our society has lost sight of that. We're so self-protective of ourselves that we just don't want to, be seen as weak or be seen as getting stompled on. Now, all of us have had, I talked last week about, or 2 weeks ago, about trust and how hard it is when trust has been broken. And lots of leadership, there's been broken trust, and that's really hard to recover from. But we've got to rise above it because if we don't lead from where we are, then we're never going to see change in this world. And there's the key. There's a key right there, is that every single person has leadership within them. We all lead. Even if we're at the bottom of the totem pole in an org chart, we can lead from where we are. We can lead up. We can lead out. We can lead within. And so that's really the power of leadership, is that it's not just a position. It's actually a role. It's an attitude. It's a heart. And I really like that. I heard it said once, some see leadership as a position, others see leadership as influence. John Maxwell very famously said that leadership is influence. But Jesus said that leadership is service. It's in the service of others. I like that one the best. We have to become better at that. We need to come under and lift people up, not lord it over them. And I'm talking about every sphere of life here. If you have a leadership role, or you have even within your family, within your neighborhood, within your organization, it's about serving. It's about coming under and lifting up. It's not about having a leadership position where I get to boss everybody around and I get to do that to bother other people. Crawford Lotus said this. He said, "The authority to lead is developed and cultivated not through power, but rather through acts of service from a humble heart." Man, I love that one too. I really like that. I'm gonna say it again. The authority to lead is developed and cultivated not through power, but through acts of service from a humble heart. Let that one sink in for a minute. Maybe you can make a comment. Tell me in your comments wherever you're watching this. What have you had a leader like that in your life that has really spoken into your life, that's built you up like that, right? And that is amazing. And so I think we've all had good leaders and bad leaders. Gary asked a question. I really love this one, Gary. It's like, how should we follow a poor leader? Ooh. Oh man, some people would say don't bother following a poor leader. But actually, you know what the solution to poor leadership is? I think, anyway, this is just my thought, my opinion, is actually you rising up in leadership. So how do you follow a poor leader? Is by providing good leadership from your position, from your role, from wherever you are in the org chart. If you have a leader that is not doing well, I think that you can show leadership by being excellent yourself, first and foremost, and secondly, to take a risk and maybe have a conversation with that leader. Here's what I have learned. There's always cause and effect. There's always cause and effect. So when a leader is performing poorly, when they're not leading well, it's usually because there's something inside of them. There may be insecurity, maybe discouragement, maybe there are all kinds of different things can affect us, and there's a cause and effect. So their leadership's poor because they don't have a right view of themselves. And that's where I believe strength-based leadership comes in, because what we can do is we can actually speak to their value. We can actually respect and honor them. Even though they're a poor leader, we don't honor them for how good they are. We honor them that they're God's creation, that they have value. And maybe all you're seeing in the poor leadership part is wounds that is coming out to others. And I think that's really important to think about. Rose, thank you. You're always such a great fan, great supporter of me. She says, beside Mark, not many. Yeah. Well, I think that they are out there. We just need to keep our eyes open for them. But I also think when we step into that leadership and we serve others, I think that we start to see others rise up as well. I really like that thought as well. I heard one time that like a boss creates fear, but a leader creates belief. And I really like that one too. I think that we need to understand that fear is not a good motivator. Now, it does motivate sometimes. It seems to work from the person's view that's providing the fear or trying to, whatever, but it actually doesn't work. It actually sets them back. It doesn't motivate people for long. It might win in the short term, but it's going to fail in the long term. And so I really want to encourage you to understand that leadership is not a position. It's not even always a role. It's an attitude. It's a heart position. That's a great way to put it. It's a heart position. I position my heart to lead, and I start with myself. I have to lead myself. I have to lead in the areas I that I am in, that I find myself in. And that leadership doesn't have to look like me being out front. Many times it looks like me being behind, lagging behind, and just encouraging those that are struggling. And I think that that is a great style of leadership as well. And so, man, I don't even have Chris on here yet, and I'm having a great discussion with you, this empowering conversation with you about this leadership thing. I think that it's worth the conversation. We've got to have these tough conversations, and so let's continue to do that. I'm watching for Chris to pop in here. I'm going to keep going until he does, and that's about it. I have I want to show you something here, just very quickly. I like this picture of an iceberg. You've seen this before, and what it says, what you can't see, is what up top here is team performance. This is team performance, family performance, whatever, community performance. Underneath is the iceberg that you can't see, is actually what's really going on. So a lot of times we don't see that cause and effect in people, and so we don't realize that maybe there's something off in them. We like to judge quickly, and we seem to criticize quickly. But I want to encourage us as leaders to actually lead relationally. Don't just jump to judgment. Be curious, ask questions, find out what's going on, and I think that is really going to be helpful to you as well. And so that is really good stuff. I heard this by Dr. Wayne Hammond. He's a psychologist in Calgary, Alberta, and he did some work with us when I was with the Impact Society and the Heroes program. He's the one that coined this phrase, strength-based approach, and I really like it. And he did some research and some testing on young people that we were taking through the Heroes program, and he would test before and after. And what we found is the strength-based approach to our teaching, that it actually helped the kids grow in character. It helped them to grow in confidence, and it helped them to grow in character, confidence, and to be able to move forward in their lives, treating others well. And so he said this. He said, given their current level of response to stress or change, people always use their best problem-solving strategies to get their needs met, even if these strategies are dysfunctional. Even if these strategies are dysfunctional. What does that mean? It means simply that people do the best they can with what they have. And sometimes when we see poor leadership or we see people struggling, what's happening really is something else going on beneath the surface. And we just need to understand they are doing the best they can with what they have. But if they're swallowed up by insecurity, how can they lead with confidence and with strength? And so I wonder, could we be something that someone who could be a encouragement to them? Gary asks, this is good, Gary. It says, what role do you think positivity plays in leading others? I think it's a huge role if it's authentic. If it's positivity for positivity's sake, for just trying to kind of motivate the troops, but you don't really care about the troops, I think that positivity can sound a bit, made up. I'm trying to think of the right word, but it can seem a little bit fake, if you will. If it's authentic, if I truly believe in somebody and I see their strengths and I want to point them out and see what's strong, not what's wrong, I believe that positivity is essential for leadership. We can sure help them feel better. I came to the conclusion, I've said this before on this podcast, I came to the conclusion years ago that my main calling in life was to be an encourager. My main purpose was to be an encourager. And so I'm an encourager. It's natural, it's authentic. So a lot of what comes out of my mouth is positive, but not everything. Sometimes I have moments, but it's positive. But it's because it comes from that authentic place. I truly see the best in people, and I want to see the best in people. So that's a great question, Gary. I think that positivity is very important, but it needs to be authentic positivity. It can't be fake or trying to fake it till you make it. I always say, don't fake it till you make it. Declare it until you believe it. Believe it until you practice it. Practice it until you know it. And then you will be well set up to be positive and to bring that positive vibe into your surroundings, to your organization, to your family, for sure. That is kind of that was a great question. Got me really thinking. So Unger in 2005 said this. It said, "In our haste to change a person's behavior, we often overlook how their current behaviors make sense to them. Try as we might to guide them, they will not heed our words of advice or intervention until they are confident we understand that they are already doing the best they can with what they have." Wow. That's a powerful statement. In fact, I'm going to bump here. I'm going to look for it here. I'm going to just see if I can find it. And you got to see it. You could even snapshot this, screenshot it. There it is. I love that quote. In our haste to change a person's behavior. So if you're leading people and their behavior is poor, they're acting out, you're not going to get anywhere. We often overlook how their current behaviors make sense to them. This comes back to what Dr. Hammond said about they're doing the best. They think their strategies are working. It's what they learned growing up. It's what they have always done to survive, and they think it works, but it doesn't always work, right? So we have to earn their trust. We have to genuinely care about their souls, genuinely care about their success in order to earn the right to have this conversation with them. So in our haste to change a person's behavior, we often overlook how their current behavior makes sense to them. Try as we might to guide them, they will not heed our words of advice or intervention until they are confident we understand they are already doing the best they can with what they have. What a beautiful, beautiful way to see things. I think that if we can just step back a little bit and we can listen more than we speak, we can be curious more than we judge, I think we can actually see our relationships grow and our leadership will just take care of itself. I really believe that. I believe that that leadership is absolutely encouraging others and to be there for them. I love that. I love that thought. Gary, great thought, Gary. Leading assumes people are following us. How do we bring the best out in people we are serving? I really believe that it is to see the best in them. I'm going to give you, in fact, that's a great question, Gary. I'm going to give you 6 ways here in a minute that you can do exactly that. So we're going to keep going here. So the strength-based approach to leadership encourages people to discover and use their strengths to accomplish their responsibilities. So there's one answer to your question, Gary. It's like, that strength-based approach to leadership will actually encourage people to discover and use their strengths to accomplish their responsibilities. And I think that is really good. I think it's excellent to do it that way. It's simply showing people another way, helping them go from strength to strength rather than focusing on all their energy on fixing their weaknesses. That's really important. We can try to fix weaknesses. I don't think there's anything wrong with working on stuff, but I think if you focus, you walk where you look. So if you're always focusing on weaknesses, you're going to just keep walking in weaknesses. And if you keep pointing other people to their weaknesses, they're going to be discouraged and they're going to be downtrodden. So one of the ways to help, bring the best out in the people that you're serving is actually to help them focus on their strengths, help them focus on what they're good at, and then surround them with support for their weaknesses. What if we did that? What if we actually allowed our organizations to work in what I call a strength-based approach, but also in the authority is situational. So if somebody has gifts and abilities in a certain area, let them lead that area, let them lead in that conversation because they're the ones with the expertise. And then the rest can support that and come around that person and lift them up and build them up. I think one way certainly to bring out the best in others is to is to do that for sure. So let me jump into so here's some ways that you can bring out those strengths. So I want to answer Gary's question here. So here's some specific ways. See what's strong, not what is wrong. If you see what's strong in people and you call it out of them, it's going to be. Now, how do you call it out of them? It's you absolutely recognize it. Just tell them, hey, I see this in you. I can see that you have great leadership qualities. I see that you are really good at what you do. Or, even situational, like, hey, that report you wrote was just excellent. Just compliment them in the things they do strong. I teach this for parenting too, strength-based parenting. It's the same principle. If you tell your kid all the time what's wrong, they're going to think they're wrong. But if you tell them what's strong and then guide that strength, kind of influence that strength, you will see them flourish. And it's the same in the workplace. It's the same in families. It's the same everywhere. We need to see what's strong and call that out of people. And then we can move to the next one, which I think is equally as powerful. And that is, then what we do is we contrast behavior with their personhood. So we contrast. So we say what's strong, and then we can earn the right to point out and contrast their behavior from their personhood. What I mean by that is simply, hey, you're really strong in this area, but your attitude over here sometimes is harming your success. People ask me all the time, what's the difference between judging and discerning? Well, here's your answer. Discerning is when you have their best in mind. So if your strength-based approach and you want to see what's strong, not what's wrong, and you are seeing in them what is best, then I believe that you can call that out of them. And then when there is something that is inhibiting that strength from being realized by being seen by others, you've earned the right to speak to them and say, hey, that behavior, that attitude, what you're doing right there isn't quite measuring up to your strength. It's actually limiting your ability to walk in your strengths because your personhood, the personhood is you're such a great person. You have such a passion for this. I want to see you succeed. But that attitude's going to keep you from succeeding. So you can see there how powerful that is. And so what we want to do is we want to understand the cause and effect, identify what is beneath the surface, and acknowledge the feelings first. So, hey, I know you're upset. I can see you're upset. And then kind of reframe those thoughts. However, this is hurting you. Because if it's discernment, you want what's best for that person, not for yourself. If it's judgment, it's because you've been embarrassed by them or by their poor performance or their poor whatever. You've been embarrassed or it made you look bad. That's judgment. That's selfish, actually. I always say the opposite of hate the opposite of love is not hate, it's selfishness. It's very self-focused to be more concerned about how you were affected than how they were affected. So if you want to bring the best out in your people, what you want to do is see what's strong, not what's wrong, and then contrast behavior that is hurting that strength from who they are as a person. And it's just so important to do that. All right, let's move on to the next one. This is called a conflict sandwich, and you've probably heard this one before, but sometimes even the best you do, you might still end up with some conflict, right? And so what you want to do is point out their strengths, identify the problem, and then end with affirmation again. You want to affirm them. And so you always give a clear path to the desired outcomes, ask questions rather than making statements. And so that's a good way to deal with that conflict if it comes up. So a strength-based leader will use this conflict resolutions to bring the best out in their people. Speak into it, and they've heard the right to hear it. All right. The next one is strength-based communication. I got good old Simpson there, right? And he had the right lines. I will effectively communicate with others. Communication's huge to this. What is said matters. How you say it matters more. So strength-based communication pays attention to how you say things to people. How do you, talk to people? And we need more strength-based leadership nowadays to be able to actually communicate in a very compassionate, caring way, but a direct way. It's okay to be direct, but it's how you say it that really matters. It's not just what's being said. And so you really want to pay attention to that. Now, I saw this one time, and it was in a university in the States. I can't remember which one now. It's funny, it's left my head. But anyway, they did a study. It was a marketing department, and they were studying how people respond to their advertising or through marketing. So this isn't necessarily a leadership piece, but it was interesting, the results. It said that in communication, 7% were the words that were spoken, 55% was body language, and 38% was tone of voice. And so I thought that was very interesting to do with leadership and communication. Now, again, I want to be clear, this is marketing. This is talking about marketing and how they convince somebody to buy something, but it actually works if you think about it in leadership as well. Your tone of voice is so important, and the body language is so important. You can show somebody you care just simply with your body language. Of course, you communicate through your hands, through your eyes, through your face, through your back. If you turn your back on somebody, you're telling them something. That's one thing you got to realize as a strength-based leader. You're always communicating, even when you don't know you're communicating something. And so it's really, really important to be able to communicate. I want to just share this. Let me just see if I can find it here. Yeah, the law of permission from a book called Bursting Your Bubble, where it states no matter how much you say, only what you have been given permission to say is heard. That's an interesting concept. That's an interesting thought, right? So it's only what you've been given permission. So, you might think you're a great leader and you can just tell people what to do and they have to, but you're not going to get through to people but like that. You just got to lead from this much better place. Okay. The next one is to lead. A strength-based leader will lead from principle based on values, not emotions based on opinion. Oh, okay. I want to say that again. A strength-based leader will lead from principle based on values, not on emotions based on opinion. Man, there's so many leaders that actually really, really lead from their emotions instead of from principles or values. I always say values need to be written on the walls of your heart, not on the walls of the building, right? So relationship is the bridge between values and practices. Move the values from the wall to the heart of the people through practicing the values in relationships with the people. Does that make sense? It's like you clearly live out and communicate your values by your actions, not just by your words. And it's just so powerful to understand that values got to be lived out of the heart. Values on a wall doesn't do an organization any good at all. Even families, you can have values, family values, but if you never communicate them, you never talk about them, and you don't live them out, those values aren't real values. They're not really, really important to you. Remember, values are the things that are most valuable to you. And so we want to make sure that I believe a strength-based leader absolutely leads from those values so well. And so it's really important to do that for sure. All right. Let me see. What else do we got here? Here's a good one. Yes, Gary, that's a great comment. I like to call them core practices. Exactly. That's a great way to describe it. Yeah, it's core practices, not just core values, because values that aren't practiced aren't values. So those two words can't be separated. If you're not practicing it, you're not actually valuing it. And I think that if we could, I'm sure Gary, if he was on here with me, he would agree that is a big gap in today's leadership in society, in all areas and spheres of leadership. that gap is that their values aren't their practices, and they have to be. Otherwise, don't stop calling them values. Stop calling them values, and we'll do much better. All right, so let me give you the next one here. Let me just find it here. Look at this. Manage expectations. A strength-based leader will actually manage expectations. Okay, perceptions and realities. You know, that old weigh scale there for sure. Perception is reality, however, it's not always actuality. It's one of my favorite lines I always say. You know, perception is reality, it's not always actuality. And so we really need to manage expectations if we want to bring the best out in our people. So we got to manage theirs, but also our own. It's got to be both. And we can't manage other people's expectations if we're not managing our own. And so a strength-based leader has that ability to manage those expectations, to communicate well so that they can manage those. And I often say accountability is good, control is not. So there's nothing wrong with accountability. We just don't understand what accountability is. Accountability is not just holding someone accountable to what I want them to do. It's also holding them accountable to what they say they want to do. So if they say yes to a position, let's say in my organization, and they say yes that they want to do this role and they want to do it with excellence, and they have a set of goals that they said they want to accomplish, then my job as a leader is to hold them accountable to what they said they want to do. That is a way better accountability than me making everybody accountable for what I want them to do or what I think they should do or what makes me look good and not them, if that makes sense. I always say we want to, as leaders, a strength-based leader will give power to, they won't power over. Big difference. We want to power to people. We want to give them power. We want to empower them, right? That's where that word comes from, empowerment. We want to empower our people, empower our family, empower our neighbors. We want to empower others. That's how we serve them, by empowering them. And so it's power to, it's not power over. If we power over, that is not leadership. That's control. That's manipulation. That's a lot of other things. It's not leadership. And so accountability is also based on agreement. I think that we need to have agreement when we're actually being accountable to one another. And so that's super important too. And then accountability should be proportionate to the strengths, not the weaknesses. In other words, when we just talked about that, if we want to see what's strong, not what's wrong, accountability should be to what they say they want to accomplish and their goals, but it should also be proportionate to what their strengths are, not what their weaknesses are. If, for example, if we give somebody a task to do or ask them to do something for us, and they don't have skills in that area and they don't have the ability to do it, and then we try to hold them accountable, we crush them. We make them feel terrible. Rather than empowering them to help them to bring support around them to help them succeed and to teach them how to do it, we just crush them because we think they should do it. So don't hold people accountable to weaknesses. Hold them accountable to strengths, and then they're going to want to do that more. When you hold them to strengths, when you see what's strong, they'll want to be strong more. They'll appreciate it. They'll want to follow you all the more. It's a very powerful concept. All right. Now, here's another one. Encourage appropriate problem solving. And so that's really important. Help your team make a way, not get their own way. Yeah, this works for kids too. Don't just, don't just, let them have their own way, but don't just say no for the sake of it either. Help them make a way. And so that's really good strength-based leadership. We can actually help them. So problems can't be solved at the same level of thinking that created them. That makes sense, doesn't it? You can't solve a problem at the same level that created the problem. And so we have to somehow have dialogue and in team learn and figure out what we can do to move forward. Problems are opportunities to learn and grow together. So problems are not, a lot of people have a wrong view of conflict even. Conflict is a good thing. It's actually an invitation to go deeper with somebody, to understand something deeper, understand them deeper. And so in the same way, when we have problems, it's actually an opportunity to learn and grow together rather than getting all angry at each other and and that really helps. Problem solving is coached, not micromanaged. I really like that too. It's like it's not actually trying to micromanage them. It's to coach them. It's to empower them. It's to find out what you can do, what you could provide to help them do better. I like that, and that's fantastic. All right, we're almost done here, and I don't know where Chris is at. He must have got caught up in traffic, but he and I had agreed that I'd just go ahead if he wasn't here yet. All right. Here's number 7. Identify with pain, affirm strength. This is really important. Your team stakeholders need to know that you care about them. You see the value in each team member. So what you want to do is you want to identify with their pain. So if they're struggling, if they haven't done a task well, if they're struggling to meet their their deadlines and whatnot, try to identify with what they're going through. This is good with kids too, or family members. Identify with the pain, acknowledge it. You don't have to agree with it. They might be out to lunch in terms of why they're in pain, but what the pain point is, but you have to acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge their feelings. Like I said, perception's reality. It's not always actuality. Their perception might be completely wrong, but you're not going to earn the right to reframe that thinking until you've actually acknowledged their feelings and their pain. So you want to acknowledge their pain, affirm their strengths once again, and then give them steps forward. You can even ask them instead of tell them. Just say, "Can I suggest something? May I offer you some ideas that could help you?" And that is good leadership. That will really help them grow for sure. For sure, that will help them grow. Number 8, I think this is the final one, and I really like this. I like the imagery here too. 3 gifts that a strength-based leader gives to their team: clarity, consistency, and capacity. We help them grow their capacity. It's about them, not about you. It's about them. And I think that this is a beautiful gift that a strength-based leadership approach provides. Clarity, it provides consistency and capacity. And I really like the imagery there with the hand coming up and helping them fill the gap in. That is a great picture of what leadership should look like. And I like that. That's good, Gary. I like that. A predictable leader is a good leader. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no question about it, that we want to be predictable. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to be perfect. That means that we're predictable. It means that we're authentic. We live out of authenticity so that there is consistency. It doesn't mean we never change our mind. It doesn't mean that we don't make adjustments. It doesn't mean any of that. But it means that they know that they're safe. We've got to create psychological safety in our organizations, in our families. We've got to create emotional safety in our families, in our organization. Come on, you got to agree with that. There's just so many people who have been hurt deeply, and it breaks my heart when I see people hurt so deeply and they just can't seem to find their way out of that situation. And I just want you to know, this is a great opportunity even now. I want you to know there is healing available. You can heal from being hurt by leaders, by having that trust broken by leaders in your life. There are good leaders out there. There's great people out there. There's people that want to walk with you in that healing and care for you through the healing. Don't give up. Don't give up. But start by being the leader you always wanted. Start by being that person that will take the steps towards healing. Forgiveness. There's a clear step. You got to forgive. Don't hold on to that bitterness. Resentment is frozen anger. That's all it is. And just so let go of that resentment. Let go of that hurt. Be a leader. A strength-based leader doesn't hold on to resentment. They don't hold on to past offenses. They actually rise above them, and they know they're confident in who they are, and that they know they can move forward. And here's what I've learned in my journey is that the bad leaders I've had in my life, I've learned from them, even though they were bad. I learned as much from the bad ones as I did the good ones, because I learned what not to do. I learned that there was cause and effect in their lives, and I look back and I think about how long sometimes I kept a grudge against a leader that was bad leader to me, treated me poorly, and it only hurt me. It didn't hurt them. I got story after story about that, and it didn't hurt me. It hurt them. It hurt me. That was, much bigger problem than what they did to me. Was what I did to myself by not forgiving and moving on. So be the leader that you've always wanted, and walk in that grace, walk in the mercy, walk in gentleness, walk in contriteness, but be strong in who you are. Be strong in who God created you to be. I saw a quote that says, God didn't give you influence so that you could lead people better. He gave it to you so that you could love people more. I like that. I like that. That's a beautiful picture, a beautiful picture for sure. And I like that one. All right. Let me couple more quotes here. I'm just looking for. All right, here's one that's interesting. Simon Sinek said this. He said, leadership is not about being in charge. Leadership's about taking care of those in your charge. I like that. I like that. Leadership's not about being in charge. It's about taking care of the people in your charge. That's a powerful statement by Simon Sinek. And I couldn't agree more. I think that's very true. Very true. That's all I got here, folks, for today. Chris must have got caught up in traffic from the airport. Listen, we're going to just keep going. We're going to keep experimenting. We're going to keep flowing with this whole, season 3 of Relationship Matters podcast. Again, thank you for being patient. And next week, we have a guest that are going to come on live, a couple. And this couple, this is going to be unbelievable. This couple, you're going to love it. This couple actually is going to, they were married and divorced, and then they married each other, and they got divorced, and they reconciled, and they're married again. And so they're going to talk about the lessons that they learned through that process, and what changed everything. How did they save their marriage? How did they move forward? And so you're not going to want to miss that one. It's going to be a very powerful conversation. And hopefully, I think Chris isn't traveling next Friday, and I'm not traveling next Friday. So you'll have both of us interviewing this couple, and it should be just a very powerful time. And we'll be enjoying that very much. And so thank you very much. Remember, subscribe wherever you can. If you can, go over to Spotify and subscribe there. Go to YouTube and subscribe there. It helps me. It helps my my views and the algorithms and all that kind of stuff. And if you can like and comment that on those places as well, that's fantastic too. Thanks for Gary and Rose who participated today really well. And it just makes it go so much better when people make comments and stuff like that, and they enter into this empowering conversation. I hope you found it empowering. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I wish you all the best, and God bless, and I will see you next time on Relationship Matters, Empowering Conversations. Talk to you later.